Is Kaiju number 8 yet another story where generational trauma was the real villain all along? No. And yes. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we're going to take a fully spoilery look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 117. The one where so many of our questions got answers, and the one where Matsumoto just flexes his ability to foreshadow without spoiling. Because when all is told, or rather when most is told, because we are still far from knowing all, everything is perfectly logical. Everything is perfectly consistent with the world that Matsumoto has laid out from chapter 1. Now, we are going to get into so many of the spoilers. If you are not emotionally ready for that, I will give you a few moments to click away by telling you to go check out the links below this video if you like funny science fiction stories. Humans Are Weird is a series of books of short, absurd science fiction stories. What will our little green friends think of humanity once the glamour of first contact wears off? Find out in Humans Are Weird. I have the data. Now, on to Kaiju number 8 spoilers. Way back in the first chapter, before Kaiju number 9 showed up, before Little Guy showed up to give Kafka Kaiju powers, the manga established Kafka's burning motivation, his desire to protect not only the lives, but the comfort of his friends and family, his burning rage at his own weakness, and the shame he felt at not being good enough to prevent the destruction around him. Then, Little Guy is introduced, with his body so very much like a larval insect and his parasitic behavior. Then, the concept of using dead kaiju body parts to bond with humans is introduced. Then, Kaiju number 9 with his ability to raise dead kaiju is introduced. Then, Kaiju number 9 as a parasitic fungus is hinted at, then properly introduced. Then, the concepts of the ghosts in the machines, the memories of the humans, and the wills of the kaiju preserved, lingering inside the weapons is introduced. Then the concept of a very old kaiju with the ability to absorb the memories and the abilities of dead humans and kaiju alike is introduced. All this build-up from chapter 1 leads to a perfectly logical conclusion to one of the most burning questions of this series. You've heard of Deus Ex Machina, God from the Machine, where a plot device is introduced into a story to keep the story going, but that just comes out of nowhere. You've heard of stories that, quote, didn't earn it. Well, this is the opposite of that. This is just the opposite of both of those tropes. What was Little Guy? That little dragonfly larvae kaiju with human hands and the desire to kill kaiju, along with the willingness to destroy its host in the quest for those goals? On a battlefield from over 400 years before Kafka was born, hundreds of ancient kaiju slayers died. They died while their bodies were fused with the flesh of parasitic kaiju, a primitive form of the modern kaiju weapons. They died in an agony of shame at the futility of their efforts. Their thoughts were of their homes, their families, and how they couldn't protect them. Those fragments of parasitic kaiju fell from their rotting human flesh into the ground. And because these fragments of kaiju flesh still retained the ability that created the very kaiju that slew so many humans, they merged together into one living being, the larval form of what would become a mighty kaiju. Because they had the ability to retain the ghosts of the humans they had been fused with, this merger of kaiju retained the shame and the drive of the humans who died defending their homes. Kill kaiju to protect the family and homes of the ones we left behind. In the simplicity of the little larval kaiju's mind, this became simply kill kaiju. Everything is just woven together so beautifully. Why did Little Guy choose Kafka? Because the other half of that drive to protect was there too, because Kafka is a descendant of the kaiju slayers who died on the battlefield. Yes, his genes are close enough to at least one of the old hosts that the merger would be easier for the little parasitic kaiju, but also because in that moment, when Little Guy found Kafka, Kafka was seething with both shame at his helplessness and determination to keep fighting to kill the kaiju. Yes, 400 years ago, the technology was way different. And what our ancestors endured and survived to build us the civilization that we so often take for granted is something beyond our modern imagination. But ultimately, Humans haven't changed. Our drives, our motivations are the same as our very first ancestors. In that moment, Kafka, in mind and spirit, was in the exact same place his ancestor was when he died on that battlefield. Very close physically to Kafka, this still is in the same region, and 400 years away in time. So now we know how Little Guy came to exist and what Little Guy is. Little Guy is an amalgamation of the fragments of the parasitic kaiju used by the warriors of 400 years ago, driven by the wills of the dead kaiju slayers. We now know why Little Guy chose Kafka, because Kafka was sharing that drive, that desire to protect, that shame at his own incapacity. So we know the big questions now. Where is the story going next? Well, when Mina wakes up Kafka, Kaiju number 8 is going to have had a huge power-up. That's the whole point of this. The obvious route is for Kaiju number 8 to royally trounce this one manifestation of the great underground kaiju saving the day and saving Tokyo. For now. At what cost to Kafka Haibano himself? No way to tell. Will understanding what is going on and merging deeper with the wills of the dead kaiju slayers increase or decrease the strain on his human body? Matsumoto loves surprising us with plot twists almost as much as he loves playing these situations straight. But whether or not Kafka's psyche survives the next battle or not, there is so much left to do to address in this story. If you know anything about real-world fungus, you know that killing one body, one mushroom as it were, does nothing to solve the actual problem. The fungus exists not only as a vast network of mycorrhizae underground that no amount of punching will kill, it exists as a flood of spores in the air. As long as one spore escapes, all the fungus has to do is bide it time and manifest again. So, the problems are far from over for this story. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Will Kafka's mind survive this deeper merger? Will he be left with a kaiju body and a human mind, or both kaiju body and mind? Will the defense force be left grappling with the reality that the real threat is not something they can overcome with military might? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.